What up, Coordination? Today on the pod, I've got Niran from Panvala on the show. Niran and I go way back to our days at Consensys in the 2018 cycle. He's been working on collective action problems, his words, whereas I've been working on coordination problems, my words, each of us for about 4 or 5 years. And Panvala has been a sister community to Gitcoin during all of that time. Panvala is a community of communities. They just launched a new product called Stamps, which you can see at panvala.com/stamps. Panvala is an endowment to help people in their communities capture more of the value that they're already creating. And Panvala is a platform to give each person the power to control the value that they're already creating so that people can use that power to empower communities that align with their vision of the world. So it's been really great to follow Niran's journey over the last several years, and I'm excited to provide that to you, the GreenPilled community, to you, Coordination. And so this is a really fun episode to go deep on Panvala with Niran. Without further ado, I give you Panvala.
ReFi summer has arrived, and CELO is here for it. CELO is the layer 1 blockchain for the regenerative finance movement. It's fast, planet positive, and built for the real world. CELO has committed towards producing a sustainable future from the very beginning, and is the world's first carbon-negative, EVM-compatible layer 1 blockchain. CELO has become much more than a technology, a currency, a community, or even just a layer 1. CELO is a movement to create conditions of prosperity for everyone. You can soon engage with all of this via green asset Uniswap pools on CELO, benefiting reforestation and other regenerative products through the Toucan protocol, Moss, and more. ReFi is also about the health of communities, and Resource Network is creating Bankless infrastructure for circular trade and mutual credit networks to benefit small businesses and local economies, all on CELO. Follow along on Twitter to learn more about how CELO is accelerating ReFi summer for a positive impact on people, communities, and the planet. If you're attending ECC, visit the CELO Saloon to learn about what's happening on the front lines of ReFi from industry experts.
So, you've got some money, but how are you going to use it? You want to spend.
You, me, shopping, now, bro.
When you know you should be saving.
You'll never buy a house at this rate.
But what if you could spend and save at the same time? For the enlightened kind, with inquiring minds, a new world awaits. Set yourself free with completely flexible, self-repaying loan technology. Supported on desktop and mobile. Seize the power of ALCHEMIX, allowing you to spend and save at the same time. Leverage your wealth without risk of liquidation. Take out a loan that repays itself. By using yield from your deposit to pay off your balance, your only debt is time. What was once inconceivable is now within your grasp.
You're winning some.
All right, here we are. How's it going?
Pretty good.
So great to have you. I feel like we've been circling this episode for a while, and I'm really excited to talk about Panvala. Can you tell me how you got into crypto and how you came to found Panvala?
So my story of how I got into crypto started with Bitcoin, as it probably did for most people. The digital gold narrative is a pretty strong one. So like that's what got me interested in the first place. It's like, hey, here's this new currency that maybe a lot of things could run on. Eventually, I heard of Ethereum, these people who were trying to put a programming language into their currency. And it sounded like a scam coin to me, not gonna lie. It's like, why do you need a programming language in your currency? How's that gonna make the currency more useful or valuable? Didn't make any sense. When it clicked for me was when I started contributing to an open source project called Augur, a prediction market platform. I was excited about prediction markets at the time, not really even Ethereum. I was like, hey, decentralized prediction markets, that's where the value is at. I want to go build something like that. So I started contributing as a volunteer contributor, and they happened to be using Ethereum behind the scenes. And I was actually contributing to that project that made it clear to me what it meant to have a programming language in your money. It means that you can kind of write the rules for any interaction between individuals or groups of people. Write down the rules like it's the rules to a board game. And instead of needing some sort of game master to enforce the rules of your board game, the Ethereum network is a network of thousands of computers that promises to be the game master for any game, any social or economic interaction that you come up with. So if you can think of any better way for people to cooperate with one another and get stuff done than the way we currently do things in our society, you can literally come up with those rules, publish them to the blockchain, and tell people, hey, here's a new way we can work together. I want you to do this with me. And if they like it, they don't need to rely on anyone ever again. So at that point, once that light bulb went off, I quit my job, tried to find a way to work in Ethereum full time, and I came across Consensys. So I started working at Consensys. Consensys is actually where I founded Panvala. I started doing security auditing work and working on some other prediction market stuff, a couple different projects here and there. But the idea that I couldn't get out of my head was that if you have this toolkit for social and economic coordination, you should probably be using it to solve the hardest possible problem you can solve. And to me, the hardest problem comes to the stuff that we share. Like, it's very easy to organize around the stuff that we don't share, the stuff that just benefits one person, right? Like the phones in our pocket have gotten better at a dramatic rate because there's only one person who benefits each time. So every company knows if I can make that one person happier, they will pay me more money and then they will get a better phone. But imagine if a phone benefited 2 people, or 5 people, or 10 people, or millions of people. Imagine if all you needed was one city phone that everybody shared and it benefited everybody. Like, it would suck. You would have committees deciding what features the phone has. Getting people to pay for the city phone would really suck. Trying to make a better city phone, you wouldn't be guaranteed that anybody would buy it because you'd have to convince the whole city to buy it. It would suck. So that to me is the core problem that's hindering so much progress in our society. We are very good at organizing around the stuff that benefits one person, but once it benefits many people, we suck at it. We have governments which solve a lot of problems, but they're just not that great. So if we can find better solutions to organize the stuff that we share, we're all going to be happier. So I started building some things that looked like decentralized nonprofits, and Panvala was really the third in that series of prototypes, the one that felt like it had the most legs to me. And what it really is a network of communities that work together to push more resources to every community in the network using our shared endowment and the collective action that we take to drive value into that endowment. So that's really the story of how it all got started, but there's more I can dive into.
Nice. Amazing. I loved how you framed that, like we've got this programmable money and we've got these network that's built on top of, maybe we should solve the most hard thing possible using that. And that's the things that we share. Like that just follows from first principles for me. And from watching your Shelling Point talk in order to prep for this, I know that you talked a lot about collective action and how creating collective action is one of the things that you're most passionate about. Would you say that sort of fits into the theme of solving for our shared needs?
Absolutely. Like, again, so like a lot of people, when I talk about the kind of work that I want to get done with crypto, they assume that I'm some sort of do-gooder. And I think I'm generally a good person, but I do not identify as a do-gooder at all. I identify as a pragmatist. I want to do the best that's possible given the constraints of the world that we live in. Like, I'm not trying to make anything wild and crazy happen. Like, just like what is the best possible world we can live in is kind of how I orient my thinking. And I don't actually think that I'm making any sacrifice by working on the problems that I think benefit the most people. Like, I think when the story is written of what happens in crypto, like the people who end up with the most resources are going to be the people who drove the most value to the most people possible. So literally the work that I'm doing is kind of selfish. Like, I think I think if it succeeds that it will be good for me, but I also think that it'll be good for many, many people. So like that's where the collective action really comes in. Like, for this to work, like it's not about some sort of technology that magically solves your problems for you. Like, what I think we can do is like harness power that you've always had since day one. That is like there's a lot of people who see the society we live in as one where they can't actually make that big of an impact on their own. Like, there's a world that they want to live in, the way that they want to change the world, but our society is very rigid. Like, we're in a real sense a very free society, but we're not a society with a ton of agency, right? Like, you can people will let you do what you want to do, but do you have the economic resources to make it happen? Most people do not. So even though we have freedom, you don't have agency, and agency is what I think we can all get through collective action. I think you already have the ability to harness a dramatic amount of economic resources and have it flow in the direction that you want to. And all I want to do is show each and every person how to do it. Like, that's really what this collective action is all about. It's not about what some smart contracts are going to do for you on a blockchain. It's not about some sort of fancy math. Literally what it is I want to convince each and every person on the planet that they have the power to drive resources to the things that they care about, not necessarily the things that I care about. Literally, I want each person to get more of what they want, and I just want to show them how to do it.
Amazing. I think this is an amazing place to just jump into the Panvala story and what you've been working on there, because I think that how you're going to actually see this through in the world is through Panvala. So tell us about what Panvala has been up to. I think you recently had a product launch, so really interested to get into that theory and then action, and that creates results. So let's hear about the action at Panvala.
Awesome. So again, Panvala is a network of communities. Right now, there are 82 communities in the network. We started with 5 communities a couple years ago and continued plugging more and more communities into the network. A lot of them today are crypto communities, open source projects, DAOs. Like the easiest people to organize right now are crypto people because they're excited about joining new things. And the way that they organize is with DAOs and open source projects. So those are the easiest communities to plug into the network right now. The vision, again, is for every single community on Earth. Like, I don't care what you're trying to do, whether it's like a club, a nonprofit, a dance class, a recreational sports team, a church, like literally whatever kind of community that's coming together with the people they like to do the things they like is a potential member community of Panvala, and we want to include all of those communities. So again, 82 communities today. We want it to be thousands, hundreds of thousands of communities. That's what we're growing to. So the way that we actually drive resources to the communities in our network is through what we call Panvala stamps. So what Panvala stamps are NFTs that fund your community when you collect them. You can claim these stamps anytime you make a purchase or you complete an action that a sponsor has set up for you. And then once you claim that stamp, you can redeem it with any community you want. That can be one of the 82 communities that are in Panvala today, or it could be any community you want us to help you plug into the network. Because again, this is for everybody, it's for all communities. Like, we want you to be a part of this movement. So there are 3 stamps that are live right now at panvala.com/stamps. So depending on when you see this, it might be the same. It might be some new ones, because again, there's going to be tons and tons of stamp campaigns. These are the first 3. So the first one is from Index Co-op. And what they want you to do to collect their NFT that's worth $3 for any community you choose is to either subscribe to their newsletter via email or subscribe to their YouTube channel. When you do those things, you get a stamp that's an NFT that's worth $3. You choose which community you want to fund with that $3. Right now, the most popular community to fund with these stamps is actually Gitcoin itself. So those will go to the matching pool and help people fund more stuff there. Kernel is also fairly high up the list. But again, any kind of community, we hope that the Bankless community eventually joins and starts collecting stamps to fund what Bankless does as well, because we think it's important work. And again, it's for any kind of community. There's also 2 campaigns that OPOLIS is running right now for basically referring people to join OPOLIS. If you refer 1 person, you get a stamp worth $5.28. If you refer 5 people, you get a stamp worth $52.80. They're based in Denver. They're very big on the 5280 meme. So that's what's going on behind those stamps.
Woo, Colorado.
Yeah. So again, these are NFTs. They live in your wallet. You get the redeemed version of them, and then the community you choose gets the one that's actually worth money, and then they get to withdraw those funds from Panvala's endowment to fund, again, whatever it is that community does. We're not trying to change the world in a way that we foresee. We want to give you the agency to change the world in the way you want to see. So collect stamps, change the world.
Nice. And so people can go to panvala.com/stamps in order to reach that experience. Is that right?
That's exactly how it works. You go to panvala.com/stamps. You'll see the currently active campaigns, and you can collect any of those stamps you want.
Wow, amazing. I think that there's just so much here, and I can't decide which thread to pull on. Feels like we're kind of like Trojan horsing some Web3 reputation into the world here as well. There's a decentralized society direction that all of this could go once you have enough liquidity of these stamps, and I think that gets really exciting. I don't know. I guess I'll maybe ask an open-ended question. What gets you excited about this community of communities and Panvala stamps, and what gets you up and gets you like really excited about working on this?
So the thing that gets me the most excited is the world that I think we're all building together. Both me, you, everybody watching this, like we're all building something brand new. And you can feel weird new things happen every time you go to a conference or every time you see a new product launch. But like what I see happening is a dramatic shift of resources to communities across our society. And to me, the main reason why that gets me so excited is because again, our society feels pretty rigid right now. Like people are unhappy with tons of things. People want different visions of the way our society works, and I want everybody to get as much of what they want as possible. Like there's probably things that you and I disagree on, things that the viewers and I disagree on. I don't care. I want you to get your way to the extent that that's possible without infringing on what I want. And that's not really possible with what's currently at the center of our society. At the center of our society is corporate life and political life. And corporate life is going to do whatever is the most profitable. You can't really steer it on your own that much. It's just going to do whatever is the most profitable. Political life is going to do whatever you can do to defeat your political opponents. Like that's all it can do, and it can't do that much. Like with community life, what's so special about it is that you get your way almost all of the time. Again, there's disputes within communities that happens, but literally you're choosing your own community. If you're so unhappy with your own community, you're going to choose a different one. So like we can get much more of what each and every one of us wants if we can drive a dramatic amount of resources to community life. Because again, you get to steer where those go. You can solve the problems that you see in our world. You can shape the world in the way you want it to be. And again, I think this can solve both social problems that people see. I think this is the way that we're going to solve climate change. And that sounds like big and hand wavy, but I can go more in depth into that
Mm.
one as well. I think when it comes to like working conditions for working people, I think we're going to make dramatic progress on that. Because again, when we change the way that most of the levers in our society work from being just political levers or profit levers, when it comes to individual choice, then literally any problem you see, you're going to be able to make progress on. And that's not the way the world feels today. Like it does not feel like you can take an action that changes the world in the direction you want to see it. That's not the world we live in. But when this plays out, when this decentralized society, this broader crypto movement, when it gets to that end state, I think that's what it's going to look like. You see a problem, you are going to be able to take a step to fix it. And maybe that step will feel too costly to you. So you're saying, oh, okay, well, I'm not willing to do what it takes to get that outcome I want. It's not because you lost an election. It's not because what you did isn't the most profitable. It's literally because you as an individual are like, I would rather spend my limited resources solving another problem instead. So again, there's still constraints. It's not a utopia that we're going to live in, but literally anything you care about, you are the one who decides what outcome we end up getting.
That's beautiful. Um, I'm hearing you kind of like talk to me about this collective action thing, and I'm just realizing that the way I talk about coordination and coordination failures kind of jibes with the way you talk about collective action. And it's just beautiful to hear that come back from you. Well, I guess the question I have for you is like, does all of this scale? Like, if we're a team of 5 and we're trying to organize some action within the OPOLIS or Gitcoin community, that feels like a more surmountable problem than what you said about climate change. Does what we're building in the Web3 space scale to solving our biggest global coordination failures, and how do we get there? If not.
Absolutely, it does. I think literally the projects that everybody is working on today are part of the story about how we're going to change the world. And I believe that, and literally,
Mm.
I want everyone who's watching this to believe that too. Because if you don't believe it, you're not going to do it. Like you can only do things you believe. So you need to believe that you have the power to change the world. And when I show you how you're going to do it, like you just go do it. Like I believe you actually have that power. I believe everybody has it. So to me, like individual communities solving their own problems is very important. And the main collective action that I'm talking about is important because I think the vision that I want you to see in your head is something that looks like the labor movement, something that's a whole bunch of people taking actions to get an outcome. Now, the collective action that I'm describing is not about organizing against employers. Like that's not really what it's about. But I think we are engaged in a broad collective action against middlemen in our society. The people who are basically collecting money that really belongs to us. Anytime you're interacting with a company that sells you as a product to somebody else, there's a middleman extracting value that belongs to you. So that means Facebook and Google, which get a ton of their money by selling your attention to businesses that want more customers in the door, they're making money that belongs to you, and I think you can get that back. Anytime you make a purchase at a store and you pay with a credit card, that fee of like 1% plus some cents every single time, that's a middleman collecting value. It belongs to you, and I think you can get it. And again, what this collective action is literally collecting stamps everywhere in our economy. I believe that by collecting stamps, you can change the way that value flows in our economy to go in any direction you want. Some people are going to choose to take the value that belongs to them and put it in Gitcoin's matching pools because they believe that quadratic funding, plural funding, is a more democratic way to shape public goods. A lot of people are going to do that. Some people are going to take those resources to fund decentralized identity systems that they think give them more control in our economy over what's actually done with their data. A lot of people are going to do that. Like, there's so many different people that want different things, but the thing that we're all going to do together is collect stamps, because every time you collect a stamp, dollars that were going to go to a middleman goes to your community instead. So think about the campaigns that I was talking about. The index co-op stamp, where you get $3 for subscribing to their newsletter or subscribing to their YouTube channel. They could have taken those $3 and spent it on a Facebook ad and gotten the same result. What we're asking businesses to do is not charity. We're asking them to take their marketing budget and move where it goes. Instead of spending their marketing budget and making Mark Zuckerberg richer so he can buy more and more of Hawaii, we want them to take that marketing budget and literally put it in the communities that every single one of their customers are in. Like, that is literally how we change the world together. The more of these stamps you collect, the more the value shifts away from middlemen and into your communities, into communities like Gitcoin, Kernel, Bankless, and outside of crypto to those clubs, nonprofits, churches, schools, whatever it is you want to support. There's this giant endowment with a huge balance, and that is all the advertising spending in our economy today. And again, you need to believe that you can access that you can actually take that value and take it to any community you want. Because again, if you don't believe it, you're not going to go do it. But literally, the way you do it is by collecting stamps. The more stamps you collect, the more of that value you shift, and that's how you access the shared endowment that's there. The value already exists. Those dollars are flowing. You and I are going to change the way those dollars flow, and they're going to go into everybody's communities.
Yeah. I think this really gets to the heart of how we coordinate in the Web3 era. I mean, I just love that you pointed out that you can get the same results with a Facebook ad as you could with one of these stamps, but you're kind of cutting out the intermediary there. And I think that collective action, but without these like value extractive intermediaries, gets really interesting, not only because then there's more money for the causes that we care about, but also you get this higher resolution view of what the community cares about when it's peer-to-peer, as opposed to peer through an intermediary that distorts and extracts to peer. And so, I'm just envisioning this world in which we have collective action, but there's no rent seekers in the middle, and it's made explicit on chain. We've got a shared source of truth around the actions that have momentum. And just by making it more explicit, it kind of enables more networked collective action for each individual agent in the system. And I think that that's what's really cool about a world in which these stamps have, if there's a lot of stamps out there, then I think that enables a lot more reputation, enables a lot more sort of like understanding of each other. I mean, can you tell me about this world in which Panvala and Panvala stamps is maximally successful? I guess that's the question that I'm aiming towards. Like, say in 5 or 10 years, y'all are maximally successful. What does that world look like?
Sure. Before I do that, I want to tell you this year, and then I'll tell you that one.
Okay,
So
cool.
the early days of this movement, this mass movement that we're organizing to shift where value flows in our economy, the early days look like more and more communities building up a culture of stamp collecting. It has to be normal in your community to collect these stamps to drive more resources to your community. So again, that means that community leaders, like people who are actively involved in the community, actually saying, hey, here are these stamps you can collect to fund the events that we throw, the grants that we give, whatever it is your community does. Like somebody has to actually be mobilizing people to build this culture from scratch. It's not normal to collect stamps to fund your community today. And the early phase looks like making it normal, establishing a new culture where it's what people expect to do. They expect to go get stamps and redeem them to fund their community. That's what the early days look like. So again, most of those early stamps are going to be sponsored by businesses that serve crypto people, because crypto people are who are here today. So it's going to be people like Index Co-op and OPOLIS. It's going to be people like crypto exchanges. It's going to be people like people trying to get developers to use their tools. That kind of business is what the early sponsors look like. And again, the early communities are crypto communities. But again, we want to grow the movement. We want to expand the set of communities in the network to be more normal people communities, clubs, nonprofits, dance classes, whatever it is. We want to plug more communities into the network and then expand the base of sponsors to where it's more like literally every business in the economy. We want to be minting these stamps to fund communities that their customers are in. So if we fast forward a couple of years, after we've gotten Stamp to be ubiquitous in the crypto world, and then spreading out locally to become ubiquitous in our own cities, what happens then is that we have a new kind of power that we didn't before. Because again, like what we're doing is starting by shifting value from advertising budgets to communities. But once you have that, stamps are actually fundamentally different from how ads work. When you spend money on ads, there's a point where you hit diminishing returns, where you've reached all the people you're going to reach, and spending more money on ads doesn't make any sense. Stamps don't actually have that attribute. They're fundamentally different. When you make a purchasing decision in the world that we're going to live in, you're going to be making that decision based on how much in stamps you're going to get back from the business you do business with. So you think of it as a percentage. The same way with a credit card, you might get a certain rate of rewards. Literally everywhere in our economy, you're getting a certain rate of stamps that fund your community. So the reason there's no diminishing returns on that is because it's a competition. Every business wants to give as much as possible to be able to earn your business. So literally anywhere they can eliminate a middleman in their business, they have the incentive to do so. So again, we talked about credit card companies, how they're taking a cut of every transaction. Once we've shifted advertising budgets, once it's very normal for businesses to get in customers by offering them stamps that fund their community, all those businesses have the incentive to try to drive those fees down so they can offer more in stamps to their customers. Because again, every customer is like, which business can I get the most value in stamps from? So I can fund my club, my nonprofit, my church. Like everybody's making decisions based off of that. So there's more and more competition to drive down extraction, to the point where maybe they're saying, hey, if you pay in cash and you work around that middleman altogether, maybe you're getting vastly more in stamps. So again, that's just one example of a middleman that's in our economy. There was the advertising middleman, the credit card transactions. There's more. And literally, that's the lever that we have to eliminate the value that they extract entirely. So that market power, where we start up this flow of stamps from every business and then use it as a lever to eliminate extraction altogether, gives us a world where it no longer is profitable to start a business with the aim of extracting value from people. Literally, as a movement, we'll have organized enough leverage that when somebody finds a new way to try to extract value, we can put pressure to drive that value back into our communities instead. We will literally be impossible to extract value from. That's where it's not just about driving more value to communities. It's also reshaping the entire economy, where there are no longer businesses that start with the purpose of enslaving you. It's not the best word, but trying to put you under their boot the way that the social media companies do. They want you scrolling as much as possible so you see all the ads all the time. And again, that's not the utopia their early employees were promised. It's like, hey, you're coming here to connect people. You're going to build a better world with a better internet. That's the vision that was sold to their employees. But what they built was a giant surveillance apparatus to capture the value of all your attention. That's what they built. And again, that's not because they're bad people. It's literally because that's the game our economy is today. If you can extract value from people, go do it. And that's literally the advice you'll get from all the investors across Silicon Valley. They'll say, what's your moat? How can you trap your customers so they can't go somewhere else? It's good advice. It's good business. But the fact that that's good advice is kind of our fault. Like the fact that that's good advice is something we should revolt against. And again, the way you revolt against that is not by taking up arms, it's by collecting stamps to change the world. Extraction will not be possible anymore. So that's part of what that world looks like. But again, this flow of stamps to communities is so much more powerful than even that, because it's not just about trying to get as many stamps as possible. You also have the power as a community to say your stamps are no good here. That is a company that wants to get your business, that's offering stamps for your business. You as a community can say, we don't accept that company's stamps. So that is literally the lever that I think you and I are all going to use to solve the problem of climate change. That is, if we can actually make it in each company's best interest, financial interest, to minimize the impact they make on our environment, or else we will stop doing business with them. And literally, it won't be an individual decision. If I go do business with Exxon, they give me their Exxon stamps, I try to take them to Gitcoin, but Gitcoin's like, your stamps are no good here. Then any status I was looking for within the Gitcoin community for collecting as many stamps as possible, I no longer get that. Like the ability to say those stamps aren't good is how you can shape capitalism in any direction you want, whether it's climate change, whether it's better labor conditions and practices. Again, they won't be negotiating against the business. They'll be negotiating against all the communities that people are in to say, hey, like, can you accept less in stamps so we can get better working conditions? That's the trade. That's how your actions can always have an impact on any problem you see. It's not like, oh, I wish the government would do this, or I wish corporations would do that. Like the responsibility and the agency both end up with you, and that's how you're going to shape the world the way you want it to be.
When you shop for plane tickets, you probably use Kayak, Expedia, or Google to compare ticket prices. So why would you limit yourself to just one exchange when you trade crypto? When you make your trades, you want to make sure you're getting the best possible price on your trade, and that's why you should be using MATCHA. MATCHA has smart order routing that splits your trade across all the various liquidity sources in Ethereum, and is also operational on Polygon, Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain, and other chains. Trading on MATCHA is super easy because it pools the liquidity for me in a single, easy-to-use platform and allows me to make limit on-chain orders, so you can set and forget your DeFi trades, and they will go through automatically while you're away. So when you're making a trade, head over to matcha.xyz/bankless and connect your wallet to start getting the best prices and most liquidity when you trade your crypto assets. OPOLIS is a member-owned digital employment cooperative offering payroll, health insurance, and membership perks that go beyond the basics that you would find at your normal 9-to-5. OPOLIS offers not only health benefits, but also pay stubs and W-2s, workers' comp, and unemployment insurance, as well as disability benefits for independent DAO workers that are traditionally reserved for regular employment situations. OPOLIS provides a tax-compliant way to get your paycheck in crypto and professionalize your work-life situation. OPOLIS members enjoy an average of 20 to 50% savings on top-rated national group health insurances, as well as self-sovereign portable employment. You can also get tokenized rewards based on consumption, staking, and referrals, and also the ability to fund payroll in fiat and stablecoins without the use of centralized exchange. You can also receive paychecks in fiat and whitelisted digital currencies. So sign up for OPOLIS today and get 1,000 work and 1,000 bank tokens when you become a member of OPOLIS by May 25th, 2022, and get started working your self-sovereign life.
I think that it's really just so interesting. Like the more liquidity of stamps that are out there, the more basically people who are collecting stamps, then the more the word gets out about stamps, and the more communities can start creating stamps. And there's just this like network flywheel that I've seen you build. So actually, we didn't cover this, but I want to go back to it real quick. That you and I both started our blockchain careers at Consensys, or at least had coming of age in the blockchain experience. And I remember you launching Panvala out of Consensys diligence, and seeing how hard you've worked over the last, this has been several years of sort of ideating and building. And how many years in are you 3 years, 4 years into Panvala?
So I guess I started working on it in 2018. It launched on mainnet in August 2019. So it's been 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've got the advantage of seeing that network starting to really churn. And I think that that's what's cool about it. Well, there's lots of things that are cool about it, but it's just watching you over the years has been really amazing. I guess I'm curious, like, you've been through a couple cycles of markets, and you've been building in downtimes and in the exuberant times. Like, how do you keep that optimism alive? I mean, speaking for myself, I'm just like feel like I'm grinding. I'm 5 years into Gitcoin at this point. Like, how do you keep that optimism alive? What gets you up and gets you excited about working on this? And does it feel like a grind for you sometimes? And how do you manage that?
So bear markets are tough. Like again, like when the resources are flowing, everyone's having a party, and when they start to flow less, there's lot more debates about what to do with limited resources, etc. What gets me excited is literally what the theme that I've been organizing people around is less about the value of a particular asset and less about even like what something on chain is going to do. There can be a crypto bear market, but if what you're trying to do is organize a social movement, I don't think the economic cycles affect people's desire to change the world. So if you can provide people an ability to do that that doesn't depend on them having tons of resources, then you're kind of relatively immune to economic fluctuations. Again, it does take resources to run Panvala. So like I do wish the market was going up rather than going down. But it's effectively something that can't be killed off by a bad market because again, the desire for people to have agency in the world, I think, is not cyclical. I think it's a permanent state of what's going on here. So it's just about making sure that the resources being spent to organize and coordinate this mass movement are and being spent in a way where there's infinite runway. Like you just like if there's less resources available, spend less, but still do the work. Like organize the people, show them what power they have, and give them the tools to shape the world and they want the way they want is kind of something that I will keep doing every day until I no longer can.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Well, in a similar way with Gitcoin. And one of the things that I'm so thankful about in this space is that we can all be building it together. I feel like if we're running Web2 companies, we'd all be sort of elbowing each other out for market share. But there's this sort of beautiful social and then technological interop that's enabled by the ethos of Web3, but also the modularity of Web3, where, Gitcoin's one of the things we're focused on right now is grants 2.0 and civil resistance in a decentralized way. And we could accept the Panvala passports into our reputation system. And Panvala can get funding from Gitcoin grants, which, by the way, is not the Gitcoin team. That's the community through the aperture of Gitcoin grants choosing to fund you. And just like that social and the technological interop and then like maybe governance interop at some point, like deeply tying things together creates this whole mesh network that we rise and fall together. And I think that that's a beautiful thing for a regenerative community. If we have these impact DAOs that are each, by definition, because they're impact DAOs, have positive externalities and they're clustering around each other, we're going to create this like rich fauna of an ecosystem that's on top of each other, building modular parts of how we can regenerate the world. And I see this like emergent bottom up phenomenon that comes out of that. I mean, is there anything to say about? I think that you're like the perfect person to ask this question because you've got, I think you said 80 something communities in Panvala. Like, how do you see DAOs forming into multicellular organisms? Like, what's the future of DAO to DAO look like? Is it token swaps? Is it social interop? Is it technological interop? Is it all of it? Like, what have you observed? Because I think that you've got the alpha here. You've been doing this for 4 years and you've got 80 communities at Panvala. What have you seen and how do you think that will evolve?
Yeah, so in a very real sense, I'm kind of a traditionalist, especially when it comes to what crypto and decentralization people typically believe. Like the default stance with new Web3 DAO crypto stuff is to try to find the new way we're going to do things that emerges from the tools that we have. And I actually believe most of what we're going to do is going to be a repeat of something that already exists. So I always try to find the old theme, the older the better, the old pattern that looks like what I think things can play out to be.
Amazing.
So instead of token swaps, I'm glad people are trying them because they might be effective. But I think I think the order that seems the most that comes up the most in history and that seems the most stable to me is finding ways to federate and basically have organizations where there's maximal independence within each community, but they come together to act in their collective interests. And the model, the metaphor that I use the most in my thinking is actually sports leagues. Like sports leagues do this a ton. Like they have independent teams that are independently controlled and have ways to organize for their collective benefit. And they do that to great success in a lot of times. The most interesting story in that regard recently has been Major League Soccer and seeing them, like, through sheer force of will, make soccer popular in America, which is a very hard task to accomplish. But like they did it because they had this asset that they all built a network around, and then they had ways to organize for the collective good of the sport. And I think that same sort of thing is what will emerge through crypto. And again, I don't think we're there yet. I think actually most of the assets that we have in crypto will end up being a barrier to competition, a barrier to cooperation rather than ease it over time. But I think if we have the cooperative ethos where we assume, again, just believing that we can end up in a cooperative situation is what's going to allow us to be there. Belief is a very important thing. And if we believe that we're going to find ways to make all these things cooperate, then I think we're more likely to do it. I do think we're going to have to adjust what tokens and different assets in crypto mean to get there. Because again, by default, they're much more similar to corporations. They're competitive by default. But if we find ways to get past that, I think there's a bright future of cooperation between all these different things out there.
Nice. Yeah, it's just a beautiful world when I think about intra-DAO cooperation and then inter-DAO cooperation, and then we start to think about ecosystems. And yeah, it's really beautiful when I sort of think up and down that stack. Is there? I think we're kind of running short on time. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to talk about?
I think we got to almost all the things. The one thing that I want to be able to talk through with you, especially, is just visualizing, since this movement that we're trying to organize involves so many different communities. I think thinking through a thought experiment of how it would work with Gitcoin in particular would be pretty valuable for everybody. So, like, again, people are already collecting stamps and choosing Gitcoin to redeem them. So if we imagine more broadly how stamps fit in with Gitcoin in general, like the best example of how it could be used, again, this isn't how you have to do anything, but an example of how it could interoperate is if people are collecting stamps and they're using those stamps to fund Gitcoin's matching pool. The way to build a culture of stamp collecting within the Gitcoin community, I think, is to tie that into the way Gitcoin works. So there's already a mechanism within Gitcoin, the trust bonus, of whenever you tie into a new identity system, leveraging the fact that identity is core to the way that plural funding works, you get more of matching when we've been able to verify that your identity is strong. So if we also say you can get a higher trust bonus if you're actively collecting stamps, you're actively driving more value away from middlemen and into Gitcoin's matching pool. Like, I think that's one vision of how this culture of stamp collecting starts to grow. And because Gitcoin's community is one of the most active ones in actually taking action that exists in crypto, like, there's a lot of communities out there, but the Gitcoin community is the only one out there every quarter making transactions on chain to support what's going on. So, like, the more that this movement takes hold within the Gitcoin community, the more I think it will succeed in general. Like, the Gitcoin community is very key to the world that I see in my head.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really beautiful that we've been building this world together for several years, and looking forward to seeing Panvala succeed a lot. And as Gitcoin becomes a DAO and becomes its own beast, I think that I hope to see much continued interop between Panvala and Gitcoin. It's been really beautiful. Panvala, Gitcoin, and I know Kernel is actually now independent from Gitcoin, but just I think that's a beautiful example of DAO to DAO coordination. And if we can kind of keep doing that dance and spread the word out to the rest of the ecosystem, it's going to be a beautiful thing. So thank you for your work thus far. I'm excited about Panvala stamps. Panvala.com/stamps is the call to action. And where can people find you in Panvala online?
So on Twitter, I'm at Niran. That's Niran on Twitter. And then Panvala is Panvala HQ, PANVALA HQ. Definitely follow us. And again, like the key thing that I want you to leave here with is with the belief that you can actually change the world. If you don't believe it, you're not going to do it. But again, I believe that you can collect stamps to change the world. I want you to start doing it today. I want you to show your community how to do it, because again, this mass movement that we're organizing, it's how we make every community have a larger budget, and how we stop having to have political fights. Stop having to rely on profit to run everything. Literally, you and your community can shape the world the way you want.
Nice. Collect stamps, remove intermediaries, and change the world.
That's the pitch.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Cheers.